Spotlight. And now we'll transition over. I'm sorry, I just did doing this for the recording. We'll now transition over to the Grantee Spotlight from the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And these Grantee Spotlights are really meant as opportunities to learn from the grantees of 2019 and 2020. And to really hear about the work and really dig into some of the challenges that the grantees faced and some of the learnings that they've sort of garnered over the past year and a half in their work. So really excited today to have Milzy and Yarlyn from the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And we are really thrilled to have Irfana, Jetha, Noorani, one of our resource team members, take us through this session. And Irfana has also worked really closely with City of Lancaster and their work. And this is one of my favorite actual examples of how our resource team has supported a group. So take it away, Irfana.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Welcome, everyone. I definitely want to invite everyone who's in our audience today to add your name, title, organization, and project location into the chat as we kick off this session. We'd love to know where you're from. Thomas just slid those questions into the chat for you, and we look forward to chatting with you today. I want to welcome everyone to today's Grantee Spotlight with the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. My name is Irfana, Noorani, and I'm very excited to be moderating today's panel. And I just have absolutely loved working with the City of Lancaster on this project, and especially working with Yarlyn over the last couple of months. One of the main goals of NEA's Our Town program is that projects should lay the groundwork for systems change that sustain the integration of arts, culture, and design into local strategies for strengthening communities, and also to help advance local economic, physical, and/or social outcomes. So today we are going to hear from the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania about the integration of their public art program into the Department of Neighborhood Engagement and the non-linear path that this project has taken to get there. We will touch on how the public art program has been integrated into city government to sustain their work beyond the scope of the NEA Our Town grant. And we will explore what I'm calling the messy middle of the project, the challenges, transitions, and trust building that they are currently going through to gain successful and sustained outcomes in their work. I'm going to turn it over now to Milzy Carrasco, the Director of Neighborhood Engagement for the City of Lancaster, and Yarlyn Rosario, the Public Art Community Engagement, also known as PACE Manager, to give us a brief overview of their project. Milzy and Yarlyn, welcome, and please go ahead.
Thank you for having us, Irfana. So Thomas, can you please put the slideshow up? Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. So here we are, how it started, how it's going, a project's messy middle. Next slide, please. So like Irfana said, I'm Yarlyn Rosario. I'm the PACE manager for the City of Lancaster. A little about myself, I'm an artist. I like to say that I'm not a fine artist. I'm a messy one because I'm still discovering what art making really is to me. I'm really happy to be here today because when I normally attend conferences or workshop, the people who are presenting are a little bit older than I am. So I'm really excited for the opportunity to share my perspective and my experience being somebody really entry level in this field, and just to be here today. Milzy, do you want to go?
Sure.
Share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. First of all, what an incredible honor to be on, to be invited to speak here and present to all of you. Thank you, NEA, for this invitation. And really the honor to work with Yarlyn and the work that she's pushing forward. So I'm excited for her to share some of her journey through this process. A little bit about myself. I am a super proud Puerto Rican mom of 3. Community development work is really part of my culture. I learned this very young, at a very young age, through my mother, my grandmother. And really it's a special privileged to be the first Latina Latinx person of color director for the City of Lancaster. I'm super, my hopes is to inspire everyone on this call that there's something that we're sharing, that Yarlyn's sharing today, that you can walk away from and really connect to some of the things that we're talking about today. It's community development work is amazing and it's hard work. And so we're excited to share with you some of our journey. And then the final thing that I want to share is democracy is so important in elevating the voice of our people, and really is the most important thing that we can do in the position that we are as we're working in community engagement. So empowering and supporting others in their beliefs and leveraging the work, the influence that we have in this office is vital to myself and vital to our team. So thank you. Next slide, please. Thomas, thank you.
So a little bit about our agenda today and what we're going to be talking about in this workshop is community engagement in Lancaster City, why this work is vital for democracy, and program transitions before they began and where we are today. And next slide, please. So to give everyone a little bit of context about our city, we have 60,000 residents currently residing in our city. 40% of our residents are Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. We are the highest per capita refugee population in the country here. Our public art department was founded in 2010. The Department of Neighborhood Engagement was founded in 2018. It's also known as DONE. And we became a first certified welcoming city in Pennsylvania in 2019. So I'm going to give a little bit of context about the role of institutionalizing the arts in government. So the previous administration really focused on economic growth in our downtown space, and they really were focused on utilizing like the concentration of artists in this downtown space to fuel that growth. And this current administration, where they differ is the Sriracha administration is really like focused on infusing equity into government and lifting the neighborhoods up. Thomas, can you go into the next slide, please, so I can give a little bit more context about that? Thanks so much. So block by block, Mayor Sriracha's strategic plan really, again, focuses as equity as the cornerstone of the strategic plan. What does that mean? It means that infusing community engagement into every city project and every city department. So some tools that we currently have are the PACE Neighbors program, engagement programming. We have trauma-informed community practices, and we also are providing training for staff and later for residents. We have a language access policy that's currently being developed, and we are trying to develop citywide engagement policies and processes to really, again, embed this work into every city department and city project.
And just recently, we were just awarded through CNCS 11 AmeriCorps Vistas. So a special opportunity for our city. The AmeriCorps Vista cohort will be managed from our department, Department of Neighborhood Engagement, but we will actually provide the training on community development work and all the processes and policies, but we'll be able to actually have one AmeriCorps Vista in each department of the city. So one will be helping in the police department, fire, DPW and sustainability, trash and recycling. And so we're really able to elevate equity work, resident voices into our projects and our processes here. So we're really excited about that. Next slide, please. And so just to reference what Yarlyn was sharing before, the block by block, when the mayor came into her administration is typically there isn't departments of neighborhood engagement in the city that's our size, 60,000. And if there is an office of Department of Neighborhood Engagement, it's usually under community planning and economic development, maybe at a second level, a bureau chief, or even like a manager kind of position. So really unique for us to have a department of DONE here in the city. And then secondly, the mayor really institutionalizing this work and having it in her office, the mayor's office, where the director, myself, reports directly to the mayor. Shows a commitment to her elevating residents and our partner agencies to the highest level. So I directly report out any kind of neighborhood issues or concerns or any kind of revitalization projects that we're working on. And she's working with me one-on-one on that. So that's really unique. And I think that's what's given us an opportunity to really expand the work that we're doing here in the city. Next slide, please. And so when we started our department, again, new department for 2 years, it was a department of one person, myself, and a part-time person. We canvassed neighborhoods with volunteers. The mayor was part of that, our executive leadership team. And we asked residents, like, what do they consider a strong neighborhood to be? And what were the needs that they were looking for from local government? Overwhelmingly from all of our neighborhoods in the city was really residents wanted to know how to access city government, how to work with the neighbors in identifying issues and coming up with like ideas to resolve those issues. They really wanted to lead in that. So that's where Neighborhood Leaders Academy was launched. It's a 6-week training and grant program for community leaders to imagine, develop, test, and realize projects that build community and really provide positive outcomes. So all we're doing is creating access. NLA participants come in, meet with the mayor, meet with, you know, the chief of police, meet with everyone, and actually they have direct access through their whole entire project and really build those relationships and trust and legitimacy into relationships. It's all about relationships that we're trying to build. Next slide, please. One thing that I do want to share about NLA, we've had over 76 program participants. Each cohort is awarded grant dollars where they identify a key issue in their neighborhood and come up with community building projects where they can resolve some of those issues. Just recently in July of this past July, our local newspaper, Lancaster newspaper, we had a front page, which is really unusual to have community development work on a front page of a newspaper, but they highlighted the difference because everyone really in our city is seeing like the difference of the community leaders that are graduating from NLA. And so what I do want to share with you is here on this side, top left corner is LaRock Hudson, who is former activist, well, still in activism. We met him through protesting and a lot of community unrest here in the city in the summer of 2020. And LaRock then applied for a USDN fellowship here in the city and is working on our comprehensive plan. And it's part of a whole planning team. So we're really excited to have him here. Tanae Darby, again, not connected to the city, got engaged. It has all this incredible access, and now she is the chair of the Democratic Committee. On top of being the chair of the Democratic Committee, she's on the committee for the consent decree. She's on the civil service, and is just an incredible, extraordinary leader here. And in the middle, you have Kirsten Krimmel, who is a teacher, revitalized a park that we had here, launched a neighborhood group, and really is activating her neighborhood. And then the last person is Lisa Colon, who also graduated from NLA and is now the chair of the Republican Committee and just is an elected official and is our new county controller. And none of these folks knew each other, and everyone has different backgrounds, come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different political views, and are great friends in supporting each other. And that's really the power of just creating access and an opportunity for people to engage. Next slide, please.
So a little bit about the beginnings of PACE. So PACE was really adapted from the Neighborhood Leadership Academy, but it's really focused on a smaller cohort of artists that are practicing mixed mediums and also have a different range of experience levels. The program started in the southeast part of Lancaster. That area has been traditionally underrepresented. And because we had this NEA grant, thank you, NEA, shout out, we were able to expand this program to all of our neighbors, and we had the opportunity to create a connection with our comprehensive plan. So the city hasn't had a comprehensive plan since 1996, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide, please. So PACE. What is PACE Neighbors? So PACE stands for Public Art Community Engagement, and PACE Neighbors is 1.5-year professional development program designed to support local artists in creating more community-based projects. So as they're doing this work and they're learning about our community and our residents and learning about what they'd like to see in this city, we're reporting out that information and sharing it with our comprehensive planning team as they're embarking on this new planning process. Next slide, please. So the messy middle, we've made it, and I'm gonna transition Milzy to start this conversation.
Yeah.
And then
And this is really a conversation between Yarlyn and myself on this slide. So Yarlyn, please feel free to jump in. But yeah, this is messy. As I mentioned before, community engagement work is difficult work. And
not
even
all
if,
good. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry. And even if you set up the right processes, it's still like we're still learning, you know, and we're working with a diverse group of folks. And so where the messiness started for us was we had several public art initiatives in 2020 that were happening that were very high profile. We have this new incredible program, PACE, and we have a new PACE manager, which is Yarlyn. In the beginning of that process, you know, COVID, March 13th, the city shut down. Public participation is just growing. We're getting a lot of feedback from the community, and it's probably has been the highest for public art. And we're starting to see this trend that it's not positive. And during that time, we also had a staff departure, which was Yarlyn's supervisor, the public art manager. We also, during this time, have now the biggest public art project for the city, and for our city size, it's about a $600,000 project on the side of a parking garage, and we wanted to infuse an opportunity for public art there. So some of the things that happened, the artist selection for this public art project, we selected artists from outside of the city, and actually from Florida, and that caused a lot of disruption. There was a lot, we have a big local art community here, and there was a lot of back and forth, and people were not happy with that. So there was just a lot that was happening, not only socially, you know, COVID, we have this pandemic that's going on. People are hyper focused on what's being shared with them through social media, and that's all they're seeing coming out of the city is really like public art initiatives. Yarlyn, did I miss anything?
No, so I think to talk about my experience, I walked into this messy middle. I literally just walked right into it. And I think in the middle of a pandemic, a new job, a new program, it obviously brings its own challenges, but I think how I felt was like, I felt like a big lack of direction and a lack of purpose in my role as I started, because I really questioned, like, where did I fit it into the grand scheme of things? Like, I knew my job responsibilities, I knew my skill set, but I still had this uneasiness, this anxiety about like, where did I fit into this whole process? And I'm new to working in government, and I'm also new to like this arts administration field. I was actually an activist before, and I worked in filmmaking and documentary. So a lot of changes, and that was tough. So the messy middle was messy. And yep.
And Yarlyn, just to add to that, there was a lot. So there's this uncertainty of where the work that you're doing lies, right? And then there's on the community side, on the external, so you're feeling that internally, and we're trying to figure that out, you know, as an internal team as well. And then externally, with everything that's going on in the public, we're losing a lot of public trust related to the public art initiatives here in the city. And so one of the things that we were able to recognize is Yarlyn's carrying all that, right? And so she's carrying this uncertainty of what's happening between moving from community planning and economic development and then moving into the Department of Neighborhood Engagement. And so there's like, she's already on shaky grounds, and this is new. And like, is this the right direction that she should be going in? And so she's expressed that to me in the past. And then in addition to that, there was a lot of angry people in our community and in the artist community. And so she's walking into like all of this historical mistrust and things that have happened in the past, and she's bearing the brunt of that. Is that accurate to say, Yarlyn?
Yeah. Next slide, please. I think that we talked about that. I just want to keep things moving, everybody.
And then on this side is just to say, so we already know where the Office of Department of Neighborhood Engagement is, in the mayor's office. And then we went ahead and made that decision of moving not the Office of Public Art, but just Pace Neighbors up to the Department of Neighborhood Engagement. It was a clear fit with community engagement and some of the work that we're doing, and really how can we reestablish the trust in the artist community here in the city. Next slide, please.
So rebuilding trust. This image is actually from the CDC's Office of Public Health Preparedness and Response. When I found this on the internet, I think it just kind of provided the best visual for how this process has been like for me, and really like using trauma-informed principles to really like rebuild this trust, but also to find like safety in myself as I'm like working on this process. And I think it starts with safety and like learning about what does safety mean for not only me, but other people that I'm working with. And once I'm learning about what safety means to them, like really being transparent and honest and like about what I can and cannot do, and being trustworthy about making sure that I'm respecting that safety that somebody has shared with me about. And then moving into like this peer support bubble, it's like building on that trustworthiness and transparency and that safety to really support each other on mutual respect. And then we can collaborate again with this mutual understanding that we're going to be transparent, we're going to be trustworthy of each other, and we're going to support each other's safety. And then moving into the empowerment bubble, I think this one's really important for me, because as I was connecting with artists in the community in our city, I really was like interested in how I could empower their voices and their choices, right? So like reminding artists that they have agency over this process. And if they don't really want to engage with our organization right now, that's okay. And respecting their boundaries throughout that, but also listening to them and thinking about how I can hold myself accountable as I'm developing this program and working through this program to really make sure that it's acknowledging some of that harm that was caused in the past through previous programs. So then that leads us to like cultural and historical and gender issues. Again, it's like this puzzle piece of making sure to building that flexibility and creating a program that's really trauma informed, so that I'm constantly thinking about the cultural, historical, and gender issues that people have shared with me in the past. Again, this is kind of like the best graphic to describe kind of like how I was moving through this process. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide, please. All right, so rebuilding trust. So putting that into action and talking about accountability, like we released our artist call on July 30th, and we had it out. Our deadline was for September 30th. And as of September 17th, we had one submission. And immediately as a program manager, I was like, whoa, red flags, stressed out, trying to figure out why that was happening. And then I had to kind of take a step back and remember like, wait, am I practicing these trauma-informed principles that I'm trying to preach? And am I building that into this application? So we restructured the application completely, and we really built in a lot of flexibility into this process. So offering the application in multiple languages and creating a language access support. So we had actually people that did not speak English apply for the program, and we offered them translation. I actually went to an NEA workshop where someone mentioned video interviews, and we adapted our application to offer video interviews. And I met with people one-on-one to help them fill out the application. And really, we kept the application open on a rolling basis, where I would like review applications and send people comments, and then they could resubmit if they wanted to. And we ran social media ads and really started going out to community events to get the word out. And that was really really intentional process, because people preferred the face-to-face engagement. And I know that's tough in the middle of we're still in a pandemic, and I know that's tough to do, but going the extra mile to reach people, I think really helped receive more applications. And we also extended the deadline to October 15th. And by the end of our application process, we had 15 applications. And again, it was really like creating that flexibility into the program and hearing people that want to do art and want to make art and thinking about how this program could be a fit for them was really important. Next slide, please. So going into like rebuilding trust, something I've learned throughout this process, again, is slowing down and building flexibility into the work that I'm doing. And that's involved a lot of listening. I think oftentimes when I've been doing project-based work, it's like, get it done. It has to be this finished product. And I'm still like aware of the deliverables and the goals, but I'm really focused on like the process and how I can build in that flexibility to just prepare to hear people if they want things to change or if they don't like something, and how can we pivot and adapt in that moment while still being conscientious of like the program deliverables. And something else that has really stuck with me is really focusing on being intentional throughout the process. And I feel like sometimes intentionality can sound like a buzzword. So how I try to be intentional is really to focus on micro interactions. So really focusing on the day-to-day, every interaction that somebody has with me and this program, reminding myself that I have power and just like literally being in this space. So how can I be intentional about making sure I'm listening to others and working with them and making sure that I'm making this a positive experience for them? And sometimes it's not always positive, but how can I work with people throughout the process has been really important, and being honest. And then so focusing on building this new cohort of leaders, the work has been really about like embedding this flexibility into the process and trying to bring the artist community along. And it doesn't really mean forgetting the past hurt. Like we have to acknowledge that point blank period. And we have to respect and like prioritize a mutual respect for boundaries and remember that artists have agency and we want to uplift their voices throughout this process. I think that's kind of what I've learned throughout this experience, and I'm still like working on it. I still feel really hyper uncomfortable sometimes because it's almost as I'm like in this weird metamorphosis phase where I'm like, oh, I feel super like uncomfortable, like my skin is crawling and I'm like, it's change. And I think capitalism and like labor and really like thinking about, okay, I'm not just labor, people are not just labor. How can we work together to make experiences and connections and really grow as people? Milzy, feel free to add anything to that.
I don't have to add anything. You did an extraordinary job. So happy for you.
Thanks. Next slide, Thomas.
Thank you guys for that amazing presentation. I love sort of these really concrete examples that you gave us of how you modified your application to be more inclusive and to rebuild that trust that had been damaged with the artist community. I wanted to just let everyone know that we're not going to have time for Q&A today, but if you want to put questions for Yarlyn and Milzy in the chat box, we're going to collect them and then figure out a way to get responses to all of those who've joined us today. Going back to this trust question, I wanted to ask both of you how you build trust between each other and how do you work together? Because it's kind of this new, thing that's kind of come into the department. And so I wanted to ask you about trust between each other.
Yeah, Milzy, do you want to touch base on that first?
So we didn't go into a lot of details, but when I guess I would explain it as Jarlyn transitioning into our department was like more, there was an emergency that was happening, right?
Yeah.
And then moving her into our department, then we were triaging for like 3 to 4 months, just figuring out, there's a lot of grants that are coming in. Hey, what's going, how can we understand this? Where's the support?
Yeah.
And we literally didn't have a lot of knowledge. So we were just trying to figure things out. And now we have this opportunity, her project's launching, I'm able to give Jarlyn support. Like last night, we had an incredible breakthrough with the committee that we're working on, and we had to readjust and pivot, on making sure that there's a lot of equity built into this artist selection process. So I was able to help her with that. And I think just listening and asking a lot of questions through this process and understanding the form of my communications is very different than how Jarlyn wants to communicate, and how we reach each other is really important, because her success is the success of our community. And I just want to see Jarlyn as successful as, however I need to support her for her to do her work, that's what I'm here to do.
All right. Thanks, Milzy. These are tears of joy, by the way. Not like, I'm like, I made it.
Yarlyn, I know it's been a really long road for you in all of these transitions. And I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about how you navigated the changes during this project, and to give any advice to emerging administrators who might be on this call based on your experience.
Yeah. I think really, like, again, slowing down, listening to my body was really important, and like making that connection to like breath. And like, I did a lot of research on like self-care and the connection between your body and caring for yourself. So reminding myself that my liver filters out toxins. So how am I releasing toxins that come from this work on a day-to-day basis? How am I breathing air into my lungs on a day-to-day basis? Like really connecting this like mind to body connection, and just like really like knowing my worth and reminding myself to like be gentle with myself. And I would say also, like, you are your first, second, and third advocate. And if something's like on your brain and you're like, this goes back to building trust with Milzy, like radical candor, I'm always like advocating for myself, or like just bringing things up, and I'm like, hey, like, were you being passive aggressive? Like, I'm an overthinker, so I'm like, just gotta say it. You just have to say it. And so like, it's good. So I'm writing really a lot, and write in that uncomfortability, but take care of yourself, I would say.
Yeah, radical candor is core to our team. Triangulation is, we don't want any of that here. So if you have something to say, we encourage you. We empower everyone to say what's on their mind.
Yeah.
I love that, radical candor. And it certainly has, I've seen, sort of following this project, how much it's changed the ability for Yarlyn to be really successful in the work there. And, I'm just so honored to be able to work with Yarlyn through this whole thing and follow all the amazing progress that you've made. I just want to encourage everyone. I'm so sorry that we can't get to audience chat today, but put your questions in the chat box, and we will find a way to get responses to you, whether we record something separately or have Yarlyn and Milzy kind of respond and share it with the whole community here. It's been such a pleasure to hear from you both today about the messy middle, and thank you for being so transparent and honest about how challenging it's been, and how you're coming through it. I want to, we're at time for today, and I just want to thank everyone for joining this session, and from learning from these two amazing women that joined us. I will now pass it off to Jen Hughes.
Thank you, Irfana. Thank you, Yarlyn. Thank you, Milzy. That was an incredibly moving session, and just so much to unpack and consider, and really, really genuinely appreciate your honesty in the journey, the challenges. And I think also just modeling what we hope and aspire the TA program to be all about, this space for communities all across the country to really connect in this incredibly challenging but inspiring work. So we greatly appreciate all of you. So in the spirit of that, as we get ready to move into our short break, Hannah's going to drop into the chat an not so elegant list, but of the cohort of grantees who are all invited to opt into this program. So you learned a little bit about the City of Lancaster. You should also take a peek about projects that might be happening in your region, or maybe projects that share some point of connection that you might want to further exchange on. So just take a peek, feel inspired by what you all are really a part of, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to create space for that really deep peer exchange. And that's going to happen in our next workshop. So maybe if we just kind of bring that up, our slide, as we move into break. We'll see you guys back here in about 12 minutes, 2 p.m. Eastern time, to engage in our equity and systems change workshop. So feel free to stay here. You don't have to log off. You can just mute yourself, turn your camera off, or you can join back in with this link, and we'll start promptly at 2:40. Thank you all.